Wow, that was Gustav Holst and the suite from Jupiter from the, of course, the spectacular symphony known as the Planets. Well, good evening, everybody. I thought we'd start off with some stirring music tonight to open our little astrological soiree. I'm here a little bit early, and I'm going to be doing this show a little bit earlier from here on out because the light has changed. And I usually do this during the winter so that we can go to bed earlier. Because usually during the summertime, people are up later, the light is out longer. So 8 o'clock Central, that works. But now that the light is receding faster during the daylight hours, I think it's good. So next week, Sunday night, we'll do 7 p.m. I got a little bit of a late start, but we're still early based on our normal time, aren't we? So I kind of faked out a little bit there. So here we go. Let's see. We got some people in chat. Let me throw this up on Twitter. You know, there's like a whole other world going on Facebook, which I haven't really tended to for a long time. So maybe I'll throw some up on Facebook tonight. Let's do that. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me throw a little something over on Facebook. Why not? We'll let people know we're gathering together. I haven't been over Facebook in a long time. And there are people that are on Facebook that are not on Twitter. And I really realized that. And I feel bad about not staying in touch with some of these Facebook people, actually. Some of them, that's the only place I hang out is Facebook. And, you know, once Facebook started to play with their shenanigans, I just decided I really didn't want to support Mark Zuckerberg. But there's a lot of people there that just don't do Twitter. So I may have to pay a little bit more attention because I realize I miss some of these people. you know? Okay, let's, speaking of people, let's see who we have here tonight. Julie Sunshine, Julie Sunshine 333. She also does Facebook. And there's Susie Gemini. What's going on? Susie, good to see you. SL Sully. Hello, SL Sully. There she is. Joan S. Tinfoil Tiara. Hello, I actually got a notification. Good. Excellent. Sony. What's going on, Sony? There's my man, Robin. Rockin' Robin. Good to see you in here. Renee. Checking in. Nancy Harding. Ryan, my man, the introspective woodworker. Going to be looking forward to that website there, Ryan. My head's cut off. I don't know what to do about the head thing. And you know, I have moved this camera up numerous times. Oh, I know why. I know why. Hold on. It's not the camera. I have a solution. Yeah. Let's see. Where's my solution? Okay, we got the camera. Ah, yes. Hold on. The webcam. There we go. Look at that. There we go. Look at my hair tonight. I've got space age hair tonight. Okay. Yeah, I decided to have a little, kind of a collagey background. I can actually move forward a bit. Oh, yeah, it feels great. Well, the hair thing is kind of weird, right? Hey, at least it's there. What can I say? Okay. Thank you. Navigatrix. All right, let's see who else we have here. Let's see. We got Gucci the Goats. What's happening? Joan W. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about Gustav Holst tonight. Very interesting character. This music is making me nervous. Is Jupiter going to blow up? Sag season has arrived. You know what? It's true. I was thinking about that, and I did not pick that piece of music because Sag season is upon us. I was actually going to play Mercury because Mercury is shorter. Mercury's about 3.5 minutes long, and it's kind of bouncy and uneven and weird. But there's something just incredibly majestic about Jupiter. And you can hear the roots of 20th century film soundtrack music in that piece of music. I mean, it is there. You can hear John Williams in there. You can hear all the great composers of the 20s, so with the exception of Ennio Morricone. You can't hear him in there, and that's good. But John Barry's kind of in there. John Williams is in there. Elmer Bernstein's in there a little bit. You can hear the beginnings of film scores, the 20th century, in Holst, particularly in Jupiter. Yeah, absolutely stunning piece of music. Let's see. Heather Murphy has a birthday. Who else has a birthday today? Since I'm over on Facebook. Sarah Smiled. Aaron Finley. Oh, I know Aaron. I haven't seen him in a long time. Bill Chelly and Martin Andrew. How about some upcoming birthdays? Who do we have that's upcoming? See, Facebook is good with this. Facebook is the great birthday app. Can I see some upcoming birthdays? All right, there's Bill. What a lovely family. Many more lovely families. Let's see, Dennis Waddell, the 19th, that's already happened. Frank Castanera, Renee Marie Laplume, Anne Honigman, who I used to work with at eMusic. That was her birthday. Sadie Frady, that was yesterday. Oh, Kimberly Palm, very interesting person. I haven't talked to her in a long time. Anna Love. Let's see who else we have. Upcoming birthdays. Sam Reynolds, the astrologer, November 22nd. Get your liberal astrology on with Samuel Reynolds. Let's see. Who else? LaFay Farrar on the 23rd. Miss Twin Flame. I've heard her on the show before. Rain Hollander. She's got a birthday coming up on November 24th. Who else? Travis Hinton. Currently not using Facebook. Okay, probably better, Travis, that you're not. Let's see. Oh, Lily Pagel. I haven't thought of Lily in a long time. She's 71. Lily's a badass. She's a MMA instructor. Total badass. Kyle Burris. Diana Harris. Man, I haven't seen these people in a long time. Karma Moffitt, the Tibetan bell player, is going to be 75 years old. Wow. That is freaky. Karma Moffitt's going to be 75. Man. The times, they are definitely the change. And there's all my December birthday pals. Cool scene. And Facebook has really ramped it up. Now you get the visuals. Now you get the buttons. Rob Edwards. I was thinking about him the other day. Liz Wilkinson. Jan Kuchel. These are all people that have been on in this chat at one point in time or another. Cindy Oster. She's in chat sometimes. Rezia Jackson. She used to show up. Who else? Who else is in here? Marcy Shapiro. She may be here tonight. Marcy's got a birthday on the 14th of December. Cool person. Very, very talented medical practitioner. Ida Maxon. How about that? She's still on my Facebook feed. And Santa Claus. No, that's Ken Brooks. All right, enough of that. How about who do we have here in the here and now? Let's see. Susan Vogine, first notification in months. How about that? Magical Catacorn, Shasta Fogg, Star Trek meets Close Encounters. You can hear it. You can hear. Oh, look who's here. Where the hell were you earlier tonight? Let me tell you, this cat, derelict of duty. Get up here. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Come on. You got to get up here. Come on. You can do it. All right. So let me tell you what Jasper didn't do tonight. So I found a mouse in the pantry. Opened up my pantry, looking around, and I see this little thing darting around. Like, oh, shit, there's a mouse in there. So I take out a number of these packages because I think if I can get the packages out, the mouse, and then I could kind of root around there and maybe catch us. And I've caught mice, by the way, without using a trap. It can be done. Do it with your hands. Hands in a basket. I've done it. Anyway, so I'm thinking that maybe I can move enough things around there and flush the mouse out and catch it. And then drive it to Fredericksburg with the rest of the mice. I was going to say the rest of the rats, but there's some good people in Fredericksburg, just some scared people. Anyway, there are a few rats there. Don't get me wrong. So somehow this mouse piggybacked on one of the packages that I took out. Sneaky little bastard. And so I'm looking around and, I'm trying to poke around inside the pantry and I don't see the mouse, but I just fed the cats. So the mouse's timing was really good. Like the mouse's spirit guide's timing was good because I just fed the cats. So the cats were not going to have a lot of interest in the mouse. Whether they would have any interest in general, who knows? So then I'm starting to cook. I can't find the mouse inside the pantry. So I'm starting to cook and all of a sudden I see the mouse run across my countertop. I'm like, oh, there's that little fucker. So now I spring into action. Now I'm thinking, where are the cats? Where are the cats? Where's Jasper? Where's Rosie? So the mouse jumps down the counter and starts running towards my bookcase in my living room. And there's Rosie. I'm like, come on, get over here. Come on, come get this mouse. And what is she doing? She's puking. It's like, sometimes she eats her food too fast and she's throwing up. Jasper, you are nowhere to be found. Okay. This mouse, the thing that you theoretically are here for, you're not even around. And your partner in crime was puking. So that left it up to me. And the mouse is still around. So I don't know, you're going to make friends with that mouse. If I know you, you'll make friends. Now Rosie won't. If Rosie was not getting sick, she would have gone after that mouse. But it was that mouse's lucky day. Not for long though. Okay, who else do we have? Dave Sullivan, use peppermint tea bags around your house. Mice hate the smell of peppermint. Good call, Dave. I'm going to do that. Let's see. Yes, 1123. My stories wouldn't be my stories without my pets, right? Am I right, Jasper? Huh? Yeah. So I did a reading for this woman today. It was a really cool reading. And I was looking at her chart. And she had Jupiter 29 Leo retrograde and had an inconjunct going on with what planet was it? Chiron. So I looked at her chart and I said, somewhere in your family line, you have somebody that was considered to be bloodline, because that's right at Regulus, right? Jupiter 29 degrees Leo is at Regulus, and it was in the 9th house. And as soon as I said that, her cat came onto her lap. Like as soon as I said that, her cat's name is Duke. And I thought, I love astrology. So like in that moment, we're just kind of riffing on that Jupiter and that in conjunct with Chiron. And all of a sudden her cat named Duke pops in. And then she started talking about gold. And as soon as she started talking about gold, this is maybe, I don't know, an hour later into the reading, this guy shows up and look what color he is. So the cat astrology was like heavy tonight. It was on. Jasper and Garfield have a lot in common. Yeah, I think so. I think Garfield didn't give a shit about mice. Sad what happened to Wisconsin tonight. Prayers to the kids, especially. So what is going on? I have not been spending a lot of time with the Rittenhouse thing. And I'll tell you why I haven't. I think it's bullshit. I think there's something bullshit about the Kyle Rittenhouse event. And I have been thinking about this for a long time. It's something that I haven't really talked about except for the Venus-Mars conjunction in his chart that he has with Greta Thunberg. And, the possibility that Kyle Rittenhouse might come out and actually be gay, which is a rumor that's circulating, I would not be surprised with the Venus-Mars conjunction. Anyway, but I'm really it's like I didn't want to give the trial my attention. Do you know what I mean? There's certain things where it's like, we got to pay attention to this. And we're going to pay attention tonight to the EU, to Austria. We're going to look at the grand solar minimum, 400-year cycle. So we got a lot on our plate tonight, things that I really want to kind of pry open and take a look at. But I wasn't that interested in the whole Rittenhouse thing. It seemed completely staged. And I had a tweet that I put up on Twitter. It might have been, I think, last week. Let me see if I can retrieve it here. And it gives you kind of an idea as to where my head was at with the whole Rittenhouse thing. See if I can find it. Some of you who follow me on Twitter might be familiar or know the tweet I'm talking about. And it has to do with this idea of doubles and clones and people who play roles. So I wanted to show you this tweet because it really symbolizes how I felt about the Rittenhouse trial and some of the other stuff that's going on in our omniverse. So we can see here that this is the judge. This is the judge, and this is the prosecutor. And I thought to myself, well, God, these guys look really familiar. So the judge reminds me of the actor Jeffrey Tambor. And I'm not saying he is Jeffrey Tambor, but he certainly reminds me of Jeffrey Tambor. Now, the prosecutor, Binger, who is a complete and utter plant, more than likely, he reminded me of Gary Oldman. So we have these characters who look like actors. Now, I'm not saying that they are those actors, but because they look like those actors, it would not surprise me in the least if that's exactly what they are, is actors. And there is a video that surfaced where I think Masaki sent it to me. And this does get into the astrology world. Let's stop the share there for a second. This does get in the astrology world because we can talk about Neptune and the bleeding dissolve of reality that goes along with Neptune. So this is a TikTok video that is making some rounds. It's pretty viral. So I'm trying to figure out how I can. All right, let's do this. I think I can put it over here. Yeah. Without putting up my entire chat list. So let's do that. If you guys haven't seen this, it's worth looking at. Let me turn it down a little bit. Okay, here we go.
Tell me this dude's foot didn't just disappear on the Rittenhouse trial. Gone. Plus the audience isn't hardly moving at all. It looks like a recording on loop. Like they're barely moving. They all look dead. And then I see this dude's foot disappear. Here it is again. That's a green screen, bro. Here's the video slowed down. It looks like there's something blocking his foot. This is all a circus. It's just meant to distract you. You can't believe anything you hear anymore, man.
So I think that there's some truth to that. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't pay a lot of attention to the Rittenhouse trial, because I felt like a lot of it was staged. And let me go back to my reasoning. My reasoning around the Rittenhouse trial being staged had to do with the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse was followed around all day by the producer of BuzzFeed, which is Tucker Carlson's website. So that guy followed him around all day. Why Kyle Rittenhouse? Why Kyle Rittenhouse? He could have followed any number of people around. There were plenty of people doing what Kyle Rittenhouse did. Cleaning graffiti, walking around with rifles. There's a lot of A-roll and B-roll associated with Kyle Rittenhouse. They established his character arc. They established his, that's what happens in movies. You have a character and you have a character arc. The character gets established during a movie. So they did everything in their power to establish Kyle Rittenhouse's character, literally and figuratively, because when we talk about character, we're not just talking about he's a character in a film or a character in a play or a character in a movie or a video. They're talking about his character, his personal character. He's there to help people. He's like, I don't know, the Red Cross. He's Florence Nightingale with an AR-15. That's why he's there. And he's there to protect property. And he's washing down the graffiti. I mean, oh my God, the guy's got character. And he worked that day and he was a lifeguard and he was out there potentially saving the lives of people that don't know how to swim. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not decrying that. But they did everything in their power to establish his character, literally and figuratively. And then, and I'm not going to go through the video because you guys have seen the video ad nauseum. But during the video, what happens is that Rosenbaum, who, by the way, they have video on as well. Okay, it's not like Rosenbaum is some random character. They've got video of him doing a number of different things. setting the dumpster on fire, calling somebody the N-word, right? There's all this kind of B-roll around Rosenbaum. And this is the guy that ultimately is going to chase down Kyle Rittenhouse. So he throws something at Kyle Rittenhouse. You guys have seen the footage. And then it gets weird because Kyle Rittenhouse runs between these two cars. You don't see what happens there. But between those two cars is the producer who'd been following Kyle Rittenhouse around all day. Now, he was there all day with Kyle Rittenhouse with a video camera. And the one time that Kyle Rittenhouse is crossing his path, he doesn't have a video camera. What is up with that? I mean, there's something weird, okay? Something weird about it. Then Rosenbaum goes in between these two cars, and you hear two shots. There's a bang, and there's another bang. So the one bang that we hear, supposedly, the first one, comes from Rosenbaum. The second bang, supposedly, comes from Kyle Rittenhouse. But if you look at the video, there is a flash that's coming from the other side of the fence. Now, I don't know if that flash is a real flash or that flash is a Las Vegas style flash like they had at the Vegas event where Steve Paddock's window was just really a strobe. Like, I don't know if that was the case there. We don't know. But there are two shots. It's like a grassy knoll moment, okay? And Kyle Rittenhouse emerges from that space between the two cars, and he starts calling for a medic. Now, Tucker Carlson's producer is right there. He's the one that supposedly is applying pressure to Rosenbaum. Now, there was footage of what looked like Rosenbaum in distress. I've seen the footage. I know that's possible. It's possible. There are people who can also act. Rosenbaum, again, was supposedly let out that day. And he is, for all intents and purposes, a candidate to be a Manchurian candidate. He was let out that day. He'd been, again, he's got a record of molesting kids and was incarcerated, was let out that day and was looking for action, okay? This is a guy who'd been behind the scenes. He may have heard about George Floyd or Black Lives Matter somewhere, inside his loony bin or the prison, wherever he was. But it's not like, hey man, I've got to go take on the man. I feel such an intense burden upon my soul that I've got to stand up for Jacob Blake. He's just been released. So somebody like that who's been incarcerated can also be programmed. And who knows what kind of program is running around in his head. Again, we don't know. He's theoretically not alive, okay? So Rittenhouse takes off, and then he winds up killing this guy Huber, whose girlfriend apparently gave Rittenhouse her number, which is weird. And then Rosenkreutz, and Kyle supposedly blew his bicep off. Have you ever seen anybody with a blown off bicep? I haven't, but I can only imagine that once it's blown off, it probably doesn't grow back very quickly. And I haven't seen any real photos of Gabe Rosenkreutz with a missing bicep. This is an AR-15 bullet, and the AR-15 was a rifle that was created to do damage. Like, the AR-15 is not a huge caliber load. It is not a load that is like, say, a 308. You hit somebody with a 308, they're done. Okay, they're done. They're just, forget about it. You cart them out. They got a hole going in this big, right? They got a hole coming out that big. That's what happens with the 308. They're just done. But with a 223 cartridge or 5.56, that cartridge will do considerable damage, but it won't necessarily kill somebody. What it'll do is it will And this is why they use this, is that it will take resources, like to make that person get back on their feet and either go back into society or go back into the field of battle. It takes a lot of resources. It takes a medic, it takes staff, it takes money, right? So the 223 and the 556, which is part of the AR platform, they're there for damage and to essentially bleed the system. That's what they're there for. They may not kill you, but they will cause enough damage so that the resources spent on getting somebody healed and back on their feet are a detriment to the system. Now you think about it, it takes 4 or 5 people, a surgeon, somebody to work with him, the other person in the moment, people to take him, right? And you have rehab. That's money that's spent on one person who's been wounded. A 308 is gone. There's no resources after that. So that's why they use the AR-15, the 223, and the 556 platform caliber for that platform. So you do something like that, you blow somebody's bicep off. I mean, that bicep is gone. So I'm not saying it didn't happen, okay? Because something did happen. We saw what happened. Whoever was shooting that rifle was very good at it and knew exactly what they were doing. Somebody who I would say had military training. And at that point, do we know it's even Kyle Rittenhouse? I mean, the whole thing is very strange. And the minute I saw, and this was a weird thing for me, okay? Because at that time, Tucker Carlson had kind of won me back. Because I never liked him. I never liked the bow tie shtick. I didn't like what he did with Ron Paul. I thought he was kind of an effete DC fop, right? But he kind of won me back. And then he did that. I'm like, what's going on here? You know, because I got a big bullshit meter. I'm like, what's going on here? His guy just happens to be there. His guy just happens to be where Joseph Rosenbaum is. His guy just happens to be that puts compression onto Joseph Rosenbaum. And not just anybody. This is like one of his, you know, main field producers. So something about the Rittenhouse, Rosenhouse, we're fucking neighbors, okay? There was something about the Rittenhouse thing that never really, Rosenbaum, didn't really grab me. There was something weird about it, something strange. You know, and there was such a temptation. There was such a temptation for that Schadenfreude moment, right? Like, oh, good. That kid got those sons of bitches. Fucking finally, after a summer of just absolute impotence, this kid takes out 3 of these cockroaches. Good, right? I mean, you know, I was right on the edge of that Schadenfreude moment. It's like, good, revenge, motherfucker. But I held back because there was something really weird about it. I feel like I'm being manipulated a bit here. There's something not right. So then we get into this trial, and then you have this buffoon who's basically posing as a prosecutor. I mean, Jasper could have done a better job. I'm serious. Jasper could have. The judge probably wouldn't have been so curt with Jasper. And then you have the judge who, how many judges do you see really insert themselves into trials? Not that many. They do occasionally. It's usually at the end. It's usually when they go to make a big statement about how fucked up somebody is and about how much they deserve their sentencing. But this guy, I mean, he was a scene hog. He was chewing up the scenery. And of course, that's pissing people off. The left is like losing their fucking mind because this guy is showing what a moron Gary Oldman was. So I just think, man, this is just more theater. And then he started to cry. I didn't buy the crying. I'm sorry. I didn't really talk about it. I didn't really see any tears. I mean, maybe he was traumatized. I don't know. But you know, we've seen so many other people cry. And usually when you cry, your face gets all red and you've got shit coming out of your nose and you got tears coming out. I mean, when you're really crying and losing your shit, you are really crying and losing your shit. I don't know if I really saw that. I saw something. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to go back and play the video. The whole thing was weird. Okay. It was weird. And if you didn't think that he was going to get off, I mean, you could have taken that bet to Vegas. You're probably taking bets on it. And then you have the aftermath of this thing where, again, it gets into this this madness that we're experiencing collectively. I can't believe what I'm seeing, really. I mean, so if we want to bring this into astrological terms, we're in this deep Neptunian phase right now. We're in the third decan of Neptune, which puts it in the Scorpio decan. Neptune's at 21 degrees. It's been in that decan since about 19 and a half degrees. It's going back to last year when it moved into that decan. If you're new to astrology, there are 3 decans to each sign. So if we start off with Pisces, that's the first decan that goes up to 10 degrees. Let's just call it 10 degrees. And then the second decan would be the sign after Pisces, which in this case, which would be Cancer. So that would be the second decan. That'd be 10 to 20 degrees, roughly. And the third decan would be Scorpio, which would be 20 to roughly 21 to 30 degrees. And we're in that decan now. So when we're in the third decan or the Scorpio decan of Pisces, we're dealing with things like death. We're dealing with things like the underworld. We're dealing with things that have to do with obsession and compulsion. And I really feel like this is the decan that represents zombification. Zombification, zombies being the walking dead. That's very scorpionic, right? Because they're dead. And Scorpio represents death. And Pisces has to do with resurrection. If we're talking about, Pisces and the terms of the age of Pisces and the resurrection of Christ, this third decan is about the resurrection of the dead. So it's zombification. And we have seen people basically, mutate into zombies before our very fucking eyes. I mean, am I wrong here? I don't think I'm wrong. And the reason they're zombies is because I could hold up this bottle. It's probably not a good example because it's a little translucent here. I could hold up this can and I could say, you know what? See that? This is a Focus Aid and it's an energy drink. And the common response would be, no, that's not. That's a symbol of colonialization. I'm like, what? That's a symbol of colonialization. Don't you know that? Do you know how many plants had to go into creating that and producing that? Oh, and what about the factory? What about the factory that was used to create the can? Oh, yeah. And what about the oceans that this can will ultimately wind up in? No, that's not a can. This is not a Focus drink. What you're drinking is white privilege and racial oppression. That's the world we're living in, okay? You don't know anything about this drink. You don't know who owns the company. You don't know how it got here. I mean, for all you know, the owner of the company could be, transgender, mixed race, he, she. You don't fucking know. That's all you see. But that's where we are now. It's like, no, that's not it. Whatever the thing is, the thing isn't the thing anymore. The thing is a symbol of the thing 3 times removed. And that's the zombification. That's where we are right now. So you got people who are still parroting, well, he stole the gun and he took it across state lines and he used the gun across state lines. No, he didn't take us. First of all, he didn't steal the gun. He didn't even take the gun across. The gun was fucking there. He bought the gun. Okay. He bought the gun under Wisconsin's rules. Again, he can have the gun. There's nothing illegal about it. He can't have a pistol. He can't have a sawed-off shotgun, but he can have an AR-15. You still get people who parrot this idea that he went there, he took that gun from Illinois, crossed state lines, and he went there to go kill somebody. No, he didn't. Sorry, this is the zombification. That's what's going on. And then supposedly he killed 3 black people. I think, was it the Express or the Guardian or one of the English papers said that he killed 3 black people. No, that's really not true. He actually killed 2 Jews and some guy named Huber, who, by the way, that's the name of my, the guy who married my aunt, Huber. It's his last name. He didn't kill 2 black guys, 3 black guys. But yet the zombification process is on. This is Neptune, and this is the scorpionic degrees of Neptune. The zombification of the species is on. And I was talking about, the old car jack needle embroidery project, and how it's very reminiscent of voodoo, because it is. You've got literally millions of people being stuck with voodoo pins. It's exactly what's going on. Millions of people being stuck with voodoo pins. And I was on with the great Nish on Friday, and there was a group of people from the CDC and the WHO. Apparently they like to roll together. The CDC and the WHO roll together. So they went to Africa, and they were in Nigeria, and supposedly they cured them of smallpox. So the Sangoma, or the witch doctor, remember, these called them witch doctors, now they're Sangomas. The witch doctor, or the Sangoma, gave the CDC and the WHO 4 fetishes of various gods that are connected to both illness and health. And one of them is called Shapoma. Shapoma. And Shapoma is the god of smallpox. So the CDC has 4 of these fetishes in their museum, theoretically, in Atlanta. One of whom is this fetish. And you go onto the smallpox page and you will read about it. And in fact, when the English were in Nigeria, I think at that time there was part of Africa called Dahomey. And they basically they rounded up all these fetishes, and then they rounded up all the so-called witch doctors, and they put them in jail because they believed that they were spreading smallpox. And it probably didn't have anything to do with the little fetish, but they had probably found something that they could either mix into the water supply or infect somebody with. And so they would use that as a tool to get back at their enemies. So again, when we think of, some of these plagues, they have a lot in common with these animistic, for lack of a better term, religions, syncretic, animistic religions, who have a plethora of gods who have a number of different attributes. Both, well, I guess an attribute would be positive, but then the opposite of an attribute, which would be a negative quality. Some of them are more positive than others, and some of them more negative than others. Just like this Shapoma deity can inflict people with smallpox, can also cure people with smallpox. Apparently it wasn't good enough, because the CDC had to go in and do what they do. So this whole thing, right, the zombification, gets into this third decan of Pisces. And I talked about this on Friday when I got together with Nish on her Skype stream, that even with this population from Haiti coming up from the south, again, it's very reminiscent of this third decan of Pisces. This a very intense group of people that are connected to a belief system that is connected to a variety of gods that could do any number of things, mostly based around either good luck or bad luck or misfortune or pain, pleasure, suffering, right? This is the cosmology. And so you have this group of people that are coming north that are steeped in this cosmology now. And it is very much like, this Neptune this Neptune and Pisces in the third decan. And I remember when I was at Gaia, and for some of you who don't know, I did a 24-part series on Gaia around astrology. I was using a lot of mundane astrology at the time and trying to, paint a bigger picture. And one of the things that really got me during that time was when Neptune went into Pisces, and the things that we were dealing with straight out of the gate. Fracking was a really big issue. You don't really hear much about fracking anymore. But during the early degrees of Neptune and Pisces, you certainly did. And a lot of the fracking information was being used to demonize the petroleum industry. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't dangers or risks associated with fracking. Trust me. They ship water into areas where they actually frack. Okay. They know that probably getting groundwater is not going to be the best thing for people. But the advances, the technological advances of fracking, again, went way forward, and a lot of the leak. And I'm not making a case for it. Okay, so you just need to hear me. But these things do evolve. These technologies evolve because they know that if they don't evolve, they're going to get their asses fucking sued. So they have to watch out for their bottom line, have to make sure that their investments are protected. So they develop new systems like triple lined wall fracking procedures. So you'd have an outer case, an inner case, and another inner case. And then you'd have water going one way, water going another way, but it would be super contained. So that changed fracking to some degree. And then you have Trump coming, of course, the whole fracking discussion goes away. But that early on, we were talking about fracking. Now, what we weren't talking about early on, but what I was talking about early on was the refugee crisis, because I could see that coming from a mile away. And you could see that the whole Piscean drama with the refugees coming from places like North Africa, the Middle East, and they'd be showing up in these rubber boats, and they'd be showing up in places like Spain and Italy and Germany. And one of the boats it was a pretty big boat, by the way. It's called the Aquarius, which I always thought was interesting. It must have moved, I don't know, thousands of refugees. I thought, that was one of the images I used, was this boat, the Aquarius. And it brought just, and it was always dudes. It had like hundreds and hundreds of dudes. Like you would never see a woman on there. But I looked at this, like, this is where we are right now with Neptune and Pisces. This is the Pisces crises, and it has to do with refugees, and it has to do with bringing them across the water, and it has to do with that first decan of Pisces, where people's, how do I say this, cultural religious responses were being activated. We must be compassionate, we must be empathetic. Let's open our arms, let's open our homes, let's bring these poor people into our lives, because theoretically we're Christians. If we're not Christians, we're the best goddamn secular humanists that there can be. So let's bring them in, right? It was all very Piscean. It was usually being played upon their religious upbringing and their pathological altruism. So when you look at somebody like a country like Sweden, and E. Michael Jones makes a really good case for this, is that Sweden traded its religious roots for a more secular human cosmology. And he talks about Ingmar Bergman as playing a key role in that, and that Bergman is an existentialist. So Sweden begins to explore these existential questions: God, meaning of life, no God, no life. Seventh Seal gets right into the heart of this stuff. And then Bergman spends an entire career, kind of circling the drain, right? Circling the drain of meaning. And this is why Woody Allen loves him so much, because Woody Allen's also an existentialist. So this is what happens with Sweden, but they never, that's what, one generation removed. You have people, moving into socialism, moving into the influences of Bergman and existentialism and intellectualism, maybe a little bit of Kierkegaard thrown in, sprinkled in there, but it's not like they're deep into their Anglican roots, right? Or even maybe further back, their Catholic roots. They're not there anymore. They've taken on the religion of the state. And the religion of the state has to do with equality. It has to do with equal opportunity. And it has those religious values are transposed into the religious or the values of the state. And that's Sweden in a nutshell, right? So when they have these guys come up there into Sweden, what does it do? It triggers their Christian ethos. Their Christian ethos, which has been kind of redirected into this kind of modern, existential, socialist mindset, now gets awakened because they have this in their culture. And so their response is to come from that place, that place of charity and loving thy neighbor and all the things that were lying dormant inside of them. It was almost as if they needed an excuse to have something to have their religious belief and faith kind of resurrected again, because not a lot happens in Sweden, okay? It really doesn't, at least until they started to bring these people in. And now all of a sudden they had a spiritual mission and purpose. It was like their gnosis was reawakened, but it was a rude reawakening because they weren't prepared for who these people were and what they were bringing to their culture. And now they're littered with no-go zones, and you just don't hear a lot about it in the States. But the refugee crisis in places like North Africa or Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or Libya, that crisis is now alive and well, and it's in Sweden and in other parts of Europe too. So I saw this. This was Neptune and Pisces, and it was getting right into the belief system, which had lied dormant with a lot of the people there in that part of the world. You could just see it. It was obvious. It was first decan, right? So we move forward, we move ahead, And when Trump was president, Neptune was in the Cancerian decan, which meant that we were dealing with things like homes and borders. And whatever you think of Trump and what he did or didn't do, he actually changed the process and the topography of the immigration system. And to the point where in his last year in office, I believe there were, if I'm not mistaken, 17 people who came through and were not caught and released and sent back to Mexico, which is what they were doing. 17 people came in his last year. Trump he didn't do his wall or anything, but he had effectively done enough things so that people were not coming up. They had gone through the grapevine. Trump is there. Do not go there. So they'd been waiting for the floodgates to open. That's all very Cancerian material. It was very Cancerian material because, you want to, protect, quote unquote, your home or, homeland, right? That's very Cancerian. And people were, quite visibly upset over the fact that, this was happening. And for the most part, I think Trump actually did something to that degree. Now, there are other people that were being flown in, and they've always been flown in surreptitiously, meaning that they don't have to go through the same cumbersome system where they have to go through, parts of Mexico and cross over. There are people that are flown in here all the time. Okay. And that was happening because when Trump was president, he basically said to the governors of the various states, said, look, you don't have to take these people. You can opt out. And there were governors that opted out. So, okay, we're good. We're done. We've got enough. Thank you. And there were other governors like Paulus in Colorado and, the governor from Minnesota and the governor from Wisconsin. Oh, no, bring them in. Come on, we'll take more. Yeah, well, they get paid. They get money. They get money for those people. So they get compensated. But there were states that said, no, thank you. We're good. So even there, Trump had a bit of an impact. I don't think that option is on the table now. And even if it was still on the table during this political climate, especially 6 months ago, if you said no, you're going to get heat. And you may not be reelected based on how we know about cancel culture, what we know about cancel culture and how it operates. And it is a real thing. A lot of people don't think it is a real thing. So we can see, again, I'm just trying to talk about the decans, that in that Cancerian decan, we were dealing with boundaries. We're dealing with boundaries and borders, and the United States is a Cancerian country. And even though it was misguided, one of the first things Trump did was he shut down people coming from certain countries in the Middle East. He didn't shut down the Saudi Arabians. He didn't do that. Of course, he's not going to do that. But he said, okay, well, we're going to make sure that X, Y, Z, and A and B and D, they're not coming in. So he did some of that, right? He made sure that okay, we're not letting this group of people in for whatever reason, whether you approve it or not, doesn't really matter. He made an executive order and it stuck. Just like he did some stuff around the border, which made it way more difficult. Unlike Biden, which is like, okay, here we go. He was just like a toreador. The bull's just going right by him, right? And that's been a real challenge. So who do we have coming up? We have the Haitians. And what are the Haitians connected to? They're connected to Haiti. They're connected to Santeria. They're connected to the Voodoo rites and rituals that are part of, their culture. And it is firmly entrenched in their culture. I mean, it's about as entrenched in their culture as the synagogue is in Brooklyn or parts of New York, right? I mean, that's how entrenched it is. So this is also very much connected to this kind of culture of zombification. Because what do we think of with voodoo? We think of zombies. We think of The Walking Dead, the rainbow and the serpent. So this is where we are, right? This is what's happening. And not only do we have the zombie effect theoretically from a culture who's associated really with zombies and using certain drugs to make people completely, lose and abdicate their will. What is it? Scopolamine, the datura flower. One sniff of that and you're gone. You have no will left, right? It's almost very much connected to this whole zombification of one's reality, one's will. But then we have the other people who in our society are just completely zombified. You can't tell them anything. They get the fluoride stare. So that's where we are in this third decan of Neptune and Pisces. And it's very tricky kind of navigating these waters and to try to stay clear and to try to keep your head above the sort of the dark whirlpool of these forces that just want to suck people down right now. It's not impossible. You can do it, but you have to know what you're up against. And with the transition of the nodes from Gemini to Sagittarius to Taurus, Scorpio, and again, I talked about it last week, and I'll talk about it tonight. We're dealing with Scorpio in the underworld, and we're dealing with this kind of the vault of this very dark reality that has been seething and swirling and kind of brewing. Okay, I'm using the word brew. It's been brewing for a while now. And with the South Node in Scorpio, I think it's just gonna bubble up, and we're going to see things that are shocking, really. I mean, just over the weekend, like was it yesterday or today, in Walnut Creek, California, you had like 50 mass marauders going into a Nordstrom's in Walnut Creek. And Walnut Creek is a really upscale, upper middle class, quiet town. Median age in Walnut Creek is probably somewhere in the late 50s. That's what I think, late 50s. You've got new money, you've got old money, and you had a gang of about 50 people rolled into the Nordstroms with masks, guns, and they were hijacking the frickin' Nordstroms. Same thing happened in San Francisco. Louis Vuitton was targeted in Chicago. This is a thing now. This is the underworld, right? These are underworld activities. You know, when Pluto was discovered, that's when the actual underworld, Al Capone and the Chicago gang and mobs and all that stuff were also happening, right? So here we have the South Node in Scorpio, and we're going to see the legions of the underworld right before our very eyes. It's exactly what you just saw. You know, we're on the cusp of Sagittarius and Scorpio, and with Sagittarius, there's no law. There's been no law. South Node in Sagittarius has been lawless. So it's going to be giving birth to this mutational species of lawless agitators or lawless criminals. It's coming, right? And what is Taurus? Taurus is your property. Taurus is the things that you own. So they're coming for your property. Okay, whether it's the gangs and ski masks and semi-automatics, or whether it's Klaus Schwab and the UN and the climate change mafia, they're coming for your shit. That's what's happening. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to prioritize, your relationship with the material world. And some of our relationship with the material world is excessive. I'm not going to deny that. But there's another part of our relationship with the material world that is essential. It's absolutely essential. And you need it. You need it. Sorry, it's the way it is. You live in a 3D world. If you spend some time and were able to go study to be a breatharian somewhere, hanging out in the Himalayas, so you didn't need a body or you didn't need food, I mean, maybe you get through it. Right. But you're still in this world. So this is going to be one of those periods where I think really understanding the relationship to Earth is going to be really vital. And a lot of things that we took for granted are really going to be front and center. And so we're going to have to prioritize how we're going to commit to preserving those things, honoring those things, and protecting those things. It's just the way it is. It's the way it is. And that goes everything from like your personal goods to bodies, to the bodies of people that we love, children, you name it, right? It gets very fundamental now. We're moving away from the mutable magic, the mutable sleight of hand with Gemini, right? Sleight of hand, the magic, moving away from that. And we're moving into things getting very real and very visceral and very material and very pragmatic and very dense and very solid. And yet, probably the greatest threat in our lifetime to those things. That's coming. And then you have Neptune. Neptune will retrograde a little bit, but it's already made its claim, man. It's in that third decan, the third Scorpio decan of The Walking Dead. And that's going to be a theme here in 2022. By the way, they're still filming that. They still film The Walking Dead, and it's in, they film it in, I think it's in Taylor, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. I know a guy that's on the crew. He says it's hell. He says it's hell because they have people on the crew. They're minders. That's what they are. They're minders, and they watch everybody on the crew. So if your mask drops below your nose, they got a minder on set who's there to tell you, get your mask up. Kid you not. If you exhibit any kind of breathing disorder, whether you're coughing, whether you're sneezing, whether it looks like you're having a hard time breathing, they will notice it and they will pull you aside and they will immediately test you. This is what's going on movie sets. There is a group of people, they're called minders, and that's exactly what they have nothing to do with the production of the film, nothing, or the show. They contribute nothing. The only thing they contribute to is that the producer, the producer, the director, and the executive producer of that show can go back to the studio and could go back to the insurance company and say, we have a staff of half a dozen minders, and the minders turn in reports. They turn in reports on a daily basis, and those reports get sent back to the studio, and those reports get sent back to the insurance company, so the insurance company can continue to underwrite the production of those shows. Does that sound like fun? What sounds more like The Living Dead? The actual show or the production of the show? That's what's happening. Okay, we had a lot of ground to cover. That was my intro. A little bit of rant, even though it's about an hour long. Let me go back into chat. Let's do a little chart of the moment, and then we'll get into some other stuff here tonight. Thank you for being with me. Appreciate it. Let's see, minders, but do not check the gun chamber. Steve, man, bang on, literally, figuratively. 1984 communist style minders, Hollywood. Snake Jones, brother, what's happening? I was on a stream about a month ago, and you came up very positively, of course. Dave says, sounds like the people that use an MKU to control people. I think that they're probably kissing cousins. I no longer watch anything Hollywood produces. I don't either. I don't. Hey, Kelly B. Let's see. Crazy 444 hashtag Serious B. Snake's got a little patch of heaven in the Ozarks. Let's see. Maybe I should do my next event out there at your place. That'd be kind of fun. Who else we have? Gigi, Abby Lynn. Hey, there's Jolie. Hi, Jolie. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Thomas Jordan. What's going on, TJ? Didn't see you earlier. Let's see. Who else do we have? Red Cross Fake. Let's see. No fluoride in my office. What else do we have here? So pissed after the quake when everyone was falling over themselves. Yeah, the Red Cross is a scam, huh? It's a total fucking scam. And who was there in Haiti? The Clintons. Clintons were there. Clinton organization was there. You know who else was there? Was old friends from the Middle East. Star David people. They were there. They're always there, right on the scene, ready to help. Let's take a look at the chart of the moment. Let's see where we are with that. How was the eclipse for everybody? Anybody have anything dramatic that went down with the eclipse? Anyone? I think I got into some of the eclipse energy earlier in the week with the shows. They were very hard. Very, very, very challenging. I had to do a lot of changes with settings, and had to go through and do some customer service stuff with Boxcast. But so far, so good on old Eclipseville. Okay. Let's go home. Let's check out the chart of the moment. See where we are. Okay. So there we are right now as of 8:52 in the Hill Country, Central Texas. We have Cancer rising at 16 degrees. The moon at that anaretic degree, 29 Gemini. And it's interesting because that was the degree where everything began to tilt. 29 Gemini, it all began to tilt. And we went from 0 Cancer and everybody being tucked into their homes, just with 10 days to stop the spread. And everybody loved it. Everybody's like, oh man, this is great. I love being home. I love being home with my kids. My kids are home. This is great, man. I feel like a family. I get to work from home. I get to day drink. I can, check out some porn on my computer and not have to worry about it being on the company computer. This is just fucking great. But then it just went right off the edge. And we get George Floyd and we get Minneapolis and then, the Bolshevik Revolution. So that's where we are right now, 29 Gemini on the moon. So I don't know what happened in Wisconsin tonight. But if anything was going to go off, it would be tonight with that moon at that degree. Yesterday and tonight. Tomorrow, the moon goes into Cancer. So when you wake up tomorrow, you'll be dealing with Moon Day or Monday. And it'll be, a rather sensitive moon. I like Cancer moon. I like Cancer people. I think Cancer people are very soulful people. I've always liked Cancer people. And so tomorrow we move into the day with a bit of, how do I say this? Wistfulness. When the moon goes into Cancer, we're dealing with nostalgia and feelings from our past. We think about times gone by. And for a lot of us, we're going to be headed into the holidays. And for many people, it's going to be a very, very different holiday season. If we look at historically where we were in November of 2020, Operation Warp Speed was still not quite up to warp speed yet. What was the what did the Enterprise cruise at before warp speed? There was like a cruise, like a kind of a cruise control when the dilithium crystals were low. Anyway, that's kind of where we were in November. And then in December, we get up to warp speed and people actually start to get the carjack in December. So a lot of, and it wasn't really widespread, there was probably a lot of talk around dinner tables about what that was going to look like. Did you believe in it? Are you going to get it? What happens? And there was a lot of discussion that probably went down last year during the holidays. And this year, a lot of those people who were having that discussion made life-changing choices. And the holidays are going to look very different this year. There are people that are not going to be invited to certain events and certain gatherings, which is rather unfortunate. So we're headed into this period of time now. And, this is the week, right? This is the week where a lot of our traditions here in the United States and here in the Northern Hemisphere begin to kick in, especially with Thanksgiving. We begin this cycle where, the rhythm of the holidays. By the way, this was always my favorite time of year to start drinking. This was the time of year where I was rolling up my fucking sleeves and getting ready to cut loose for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And there's a reason for that, because the sun would be on my ascendant in Sagittarius. And I knew that I was going to have a good fucking time. I knew I was going to have a good time. And I always look forward to this time. And, now that I have a glass of wine every now and then. I don't certainly don't go at it with the same kind of zeal that I did in my 30s and 40s, and even to some degree in my 50s. But it sets the stage for not the back nailing over indulgence, but it sets the stage, right? We're moving into this period now where these traditions and these rhythms and these family rituals that we've been taking part in all of our life, and all of our parents' lives and their parents' lives, like this timeline kicks in, and yet it's not going to be the same timeline. People are not going to be together. And if they are together, there's a very good chance that a lot of discussions will be painful or difficult, or in some ways really alienating. So we're moving into that phase now with the moon in Cancer on Monday. So we're looking back on times in our life where we had these moments, where we had these experiences, and this is going to be going on for the next 48 hours. So we're starting on Monday, is Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday. And then Wednesday, Thursday, the moon, moves into Leo. So Thanksgiving Day, we'll have the moon in Leo. A lot of pride. It could be good, but we're also going to be going through the moon Saturn opposition. Not easy for an America in crisis or family in crisis. You're dealing with Saturn, which is rules and regulations. And, the Lord of Saturn is Tony Fauci, who's a Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. And you've got the moon on the other side. You have Saturn and Aquarius, top down. This is what you're going to do. These are the steps. These are the mandates. These are the rules. These are the terms of engagement. These are the conditions of the contract. This is what you have to do. And then the moon in Leo is like, hey, fuck that. I'm just here to love. I'm here to be open. I'm here to connect with my kids or my grandkids. And here we have this Maginot line, this barrier that's been set up between Saturn and the moon. And I feel like when the moon gets into those latter degrees of Leo and it begins to oppose Jupiter, people are going to get lit. They're just going to get lit. And I predict that there will be a record number of DUIs this year with that moon opposition to Jupiter. People are just like so fucking over being put into a box, whether that box is an ideological box or a box that's their house where they're telecommuting from, right? People are just over being put in a box. So you get that moon Jupiter opposition, and it's like, fuck it, right? Fuck it. We're going to let it rip. We're going to let it rip. And, we also have this moon squaring Uranus during that time. So people will act out of character. People will say things that will be disruptive. And Leo is very dramatic. Leo is not, church mousy Virgo. That happens the day after. That happens when you've sobered up. You go, holy shit, what did I do? What did I say? I better tell them I was sorry, right? That's a moon and Virgo kind of moment. But before that, though, this Leo moon is cooking, and very dramatic expression. It's going to square off against Mars as well. A lot of temper, a lot of tempestuousness. It challenges with kids, grandkids, kids with their parents. I mean, we're really talking about essentially a grand cross here with the moon moving into Leo. And that's 4 days from now, as we go into Thanksgiving. So with the moon in Cancer, we're dealing with like the trepidation and feeling that situation out, because that's what the moon does. Especially in Cancer, we're feeling it out. What's it going to be like? What's it going to feel like? How do I relate to these people who may have a very different, reality than I do? How do I deal with this? And what about the good old times? What about the times where, Uncle Charlie came over and, he had too much to drink and too much turkey, and he used to snore. And, we used to take a magic marker and write Kilroy was here on his face or something. Those were the good times, right? I mean, that's what the moon in Cancer is about. And I feel like even tomorrow, when it moves into 0 degrees, you can see that there's an inconjunct. So we're trying to reach into this deeper place of psychic wholeness with the moon in Cancer and the sun in Sagittarius, which has to do with meaning and our place in the universe and this higher order and this philosophical quest for the living God to be present in our lives. And so we have this moon, which is a very personal moon and connected to our traditions. So we're trying to link the two up. Where is the meaning? Where is the meaning? Where is the heart? Where is the home? And it's going to be a very interesting week in that regard. Super interesting week. Mercury is getting closer and closer to the sun. Right now, over the weekend, we've had a nice Mercury-Neptune trine. So a lot of psychic activity, people intuiting things, feeling into things, especially with Mercury and Scorpio. When it moves into Sagittarius in 5 days, so it'll be catching up to the sun a little bit here. People are going to tell you what they think. So 4 days from now, that's going to be right around Thanksgiving Day weekend. A lot of truth telling, going on. Some of it could be very constructive. If you can have constructive conversations, Mercury will be in sextile with Saturn. Sun will be in sextile with Saturn. You might be able to reach people. You might be able to have a deep, meaningful conversation about sort of the state of the world. But then again, you may not. Because that moon is going to be super explosive. Super, 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 super explosive. Because the moon in Leo is proud. It's like, fuck, it's proud. And people in America, we have not mastered the art of saving face. We have not mastered that at all. Somebody's always got to be right. Somebody's always got to be wrong. Somebody's always got to get the last word in. We've not mastered saving face, which gives people an out. You give people an out. That if you said something, you could probably nail them, or you could say something and that they would have to say something back, and you're back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And, there are times even when you want to, and I had this happen one time. How do I say this story? There was somebody who was going to stay with me for a brief period of time. And no, it's not the person that you think it is. It's a different person. Somebody was going to stay with me for a brief period of time. And we had an agreement. And this was probably about a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago. We had an agreement. And the agreement was that stay for 3 months, pay X amount for a room, and then in 3 months, you're gone, right? That was the agreement. So everything went wrong. I mean, everything. From this person saying they were going to be in a certain place at a certain time. And I was even like, okay, well, take your time, whatever. It's like, you get here when you get here, but like, yes. And it just got off to a really weird start, right? So then finally they say to me, well, I'm in Oklahoma. I'm like, oh, great. Well, you're not that far away. I said, and this was I think it was might have been on a Sunday or a Monday. It wasn't anywhere past a Monday. Okay. And I said, well, I'm leaving on Thursday. It'd be great if you could get here before Thursday so I can show you what to do. And at that point, this person felt like I was pressuring them, and they felt like they had to conform to my schedule, which was really bizarre. Okay. It was a very bizarre thing. I'm like, oh, hold on a second. Yeah, you kind of do have to conform to my schedule because I'm not going to be here, which means you have to be here so I can show you what the fuck to do. And got very strident about the timing around everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, right? I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. And then it continued to go into this kind of you know, whirlpool, right? This rat hole. And and it just the strange kind of taking things personally and accusations were kind of like mounting higher. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to be living here, and you're really kind of getting off on the wrong foot. And then I kept saying, look, I don't want to. I don't want to get into this. Look, I'm just here to support your move, and let's just take it from that place. Okay. And I'm trying to have a save face moment. Okay. I'm trying to have a save face moment. Like, don't go there because you're being kind of a fucking nutcase. Trying to have a save face moment. And then after I said that, she said, I don't need any sympathy or pity. I just need somebody to respect me. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. All right. So I didn't say anything. And like, well, let's see what's going to happen here. So eventually they showed up. They showed up about 2 weeks later. And I was still kind of open to them renting a room from me. And then it got really weird. It was already weird. It got even weirder because I had chapter and verse, everything that had been sent to me via text, email, and even conversation wise. And I brought it up, and this person denied every single thing. And it was just incredibly bizarre. They were just denied every single thing. I'm like, okay, what reality are we living in here? It's not the same reality. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I was trying to get her to save my face. Like, look, I don't want to go down that path. I just want to, make sure that we have a good fresh slate here. So you can get your feet here and you can, find a place and go grow vegetables. And that didn't work. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are not wired that way. And a lot of people have been severely traumatized, and they are incredibly defensive. Like, we as a society and as a species are really defensive. Like, we've lost the ability to be open. And it's hard. I mean, we all get our buttons pushed and we all have triggers. We lost our ability to be open. And now we're at a point where being open can be dangerous. It can be dangerous because people will take advantage of your openness now. So you have to be really cautious. You have to be really clear. You have to be very discerning about being open. And if we're not open, if we're always shut down, if we're always on the defensive, if we're always living behind the moats and the trenches of our self-defense mechanisms, nothing really truly important can happen in our lives, because we have to be open to some degree for those things to happen. So it's a very precarious balance now that we're in, which allows us to be open, allows us to interact with people, and allows us to experience possibility, but at the same time, not be so open that we're overrun by people that are willing to take advantage of our good intentions or our kindness. This is one of the big lessons of our time now. So how do we deal with it? How do we deal with being able to stay open and to stay human, and at the same time, not give the store away? It takes practice. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of cultivation and a lot of being really in the moment, so that you know what to do and you know where your boundaries are and you know what you can be open to. And you have to listen to yourself and be instinctual. And different people, different signs deal with instincts and being in the moment just differently. Some people have to really feel their way through moments. Some people are quicker. Some people are pragmatic. Some people were able to be in a moment and fuck up and then pivot on a dime. So not everybody's the same, but this is where we are right now. And if we sacrifice being open, then we become a closed system and we won't grow. And if we just open the gates to the influences that are in our lives, personally and collectively, we'll be overrun and we'll be stampeded by these influences. So it's a very interesting time in that regard. And maybe with the moon coming into Cancer here over the next 48 hours, that's a meditation I think that some people can have. You know, we are going to have that Moon-Pluto opposition, and that's really, really leading into the whole Thanksgiving thing. That's when things get tense. I think the most intense conversations are really going to happen around late Tuesday and Wednesday. And I would not be surprised if some people cancel their plans at the last minute, right? They just can't, Jim and I have been talking, and we think it's quite selfish on your part to not protected us and the children. So I'm afraid that we're going to have to maybe revisit this around Christmas time. Let's see where you are around Christmas. I know you understand. We just can't risk it. And frankly, I'm having a really hard time trying to tell Jim that you're really not selfish, that you really do care. But it's getting very, very difficult, very difficult. Right? I mean, how many conversations are going to go down like that? If they do, it's going to be on Tuesday with that Moon-Pluto opposition. If it happens, if you're on the other end of one of those conversations, trying to keep your composure and to save face is important. But it's not the other person's face that you're saving, it's yours. So have dignity. Don't feel like you're being cut off or cut out. Have dignity that you are sovereign and you've made a choice. You've made a choice to honor your own body, your own spirit, and your own conviction. And when you do that, your path will not be determined by the fate of man. Remember, Jesus once said, you must leave your family. You must leave your family. And it goes back to when he's in Samaria and the Samaritans are there. He had seen and he had shown himself to the woman by the well, the woman of Samaria. He'd shown himself to be the avatar, the Son of God, the teacher, the light of the world. He'd shown himself to her, a lowly woman of Samaria, not anybody else. So when the Samaritans showed up and his family showed up, the Samaritans, they were, rather uncouth people. And Jesus had showed himself to, more than likely, an outcast of the outcasts. And so his family is there, and the Samaritans or the Samaritans are giving him a very hard time. And his family says, come on, Jesus, come back with us. You don't need these people. And he says, I'm with them now. This is my new family. So he makes a choice and he goes with this group, and eventually he wins them over because he does not take the easy path. He takes the harder path. So the easy path, where some people would say, oh, geez, I'll just do what I need to do and I'll be there for the kids and, I'll be there and I'll just go ahead and do what I need to do. You may want to think about that. You may want to think good and hard about it, because you will not be denied a family. You will not be denied a connection. You will not be denied a tribe or a group experience. I guarantee you that. If you choose faith, if you choose the wisdom and the gnosis of your body and your spirit, you will be rewarded. And it may not happen immediately. You may not get a phone call a half an hour later or a day later, but you will be rewarded. I guarantee you will. That there will be people there for you, and it will bring another level of awareness. So in this instance, the face that you're saving is your own. All right. Let's take a look at some other shit. So one of the things that I've been really interested in what's going on in Europe, because man, the shit is going down in Europe in a big way. So I was looking at Austria. Now, Austria and the Netherlands, I mean, they're going off. I was watching some video from the Netherlands last night. Those people mean business. And I'm talking about the people that don't want to play along with the edicts or the mandates. And apparently, I wasn't aware of this, but I was listening to Francisco, was it the modern survivalist or urban survivalist? Nice guy, really cool guy, Francisco Aguila. He does that show with Matt Bracken. And he was talking about how Austria is a very well-armed country, which I was not aware of. And most of Austria tends to be rural. So we're talking rural people with hunting rifles, which is very different than England or even Germany. Germany, man, I mean, you got to apply for a fucking license for an air gun in Germany. Same with England. That's nuts. Anyway, so Austria was the first country, and you can see that they do this lockstep thing. And one domino, another domino, and another domino. So Austria, Netherlands, Sweden, and then you have Germany. So you have all the kind of, the Aryan countries, basically saying, look, you've got till February XYZ until everybody in the country has to be carjacked. Austria didn't like it. Austria pushed back. So I decided to take a look at Austria's chart, and they actually have a chart. They actually have a chart where they became Austria as we know it. So I said, okay, well, let's look at that chart. Let's see what it's about. Okay, so there we go. This is the chart. Austria is a Virgo country. So guess what? They're going to care about their health. Virgo country, attention to detail. Virgo midheaven, sun on the midheaven. They don't need anybody to tell them what to do. Take care of themselves. Right there. They've already gone through their own Pluto return. That's quite interesting. That would have been about 2009, 2010. I have to go back and look at what was going on in Austria 2009, 2010. And I could probably zoom in on their Pluto return. But they have Pallas also in Capricorn, and Pluto is there right now. So that's kind of a big deal. They're noticing the patterns of what's going on in the world. And by and large, we look at this as either like the soul of the country or the country itself. So there's a lot of heavy Capricorn energy inside of the Austrian chart. There's also a lot of Libran energy with Moon, Venus conjunction. You know what? I'd probably do pretty well in this country. I have to say that's right close to the degree of my Moon and close to the degree of my Venus. I might do pretty well there. And then Saturn here, look at that. Saturn is conjunct my midheaven. So what we have is Moon, Venus in the 11th house in Libra, which tends to be social. And it tends to be fair, right? Moon and Venus in the 11th house is fair until you rattle the fucking cage. And here, with all the Capricornian stuff going on, right? Now we have the overarching and overriding Capricornian, Saturnian push into what's really kind of a mellow, generally mellow, right? Kind of harmonious, generally fair social scene. But also, Libra is invested in justice. So when these squares are triggered, and clearly we can see here with Pluto conjuncting Pallas, and then we have Chiron squaring Venus, that's a health crisis, right? We get into Chiron in Capricorn, it's the government as health officials as the government, squaring off right there against Venus, which is, hey, look, we just want to live and be cool and don't fuck around with us, okay? That's happening right now. Now, what's really interesting is Mars, because all of a sudden over the weekend, Austria went off. They went off. They started going off last week, and we can see the transit of Mars right there on the ascendant of the Austrian chart, and Austria coming right in to its Mars return. Right? Here's Mars right down there. It's at 18. Is that right? Let's see, it's 20. So Mars is at 15. So by next week, by the end of the week, Austria will be going through its Mars return. Happens every 2 years, but it doesn't happen every 2 years when they're basically saying, look, everybody here has got to be carjacked by February. Oh, so what's also interesting is that apparently some of the police and some of the army in Austria have decided not to side with the government. See, this is what happens when you go into a culture that's homogeneous, right? That's a homogeneous culture. You're getting people that are basically Austrians, and you're telling them to do this thing to, guess what, other Austrians. And guess what they are probably not going to do? Do the thing against other Austrians. Now, one of the reasons why they've had these waves of refugees is to quickly assimilate people from other countries into countries inside of Europe to then take those positions where they can become the enforcers. I kid, this is a big deal, because those people, they won't care what they do to people that live there. They're not from there. They don't have the same buy-in. They don't have the same history. They don't have the same family legacy, unless, of course, you're in Australia, in which case I have no real answer for that. But let's just stay here. Austria, not Australia. So you've got homogeneous and indigenous culture, which is it's not going to turn on the people. So the leadership of Austria has got a problem. And if that's the case, that may bleed over into a place like Holland. Now, Holland, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or the Netherlands, probably has more refugees settled and integrated into the police department. You remember it was sort of like the cop in Minneapolis who shot the woman who was a holistic healer. You remember that? Where was that guy from? He was from Somalia. So he didn't really think twice about killing that woman. And by the way, he did. He killed her. I don't know if he's still in the force or not. But it's an example of what I'm talking about. Somebody who comes from another place, gets integrated very quickly, does not have the same kinds of historical roots and ties to a certain place. And in fact, can be quite antipathetic to the place that they're living in now. So in Austria, that's not happening. You're not going to see that. You may see a bit more of that in the Netherlands. So there's a big pushback here. Now, there is a Neptune-Mars square, and Neptune-Mars squares can be pretty tricky. Like, so with Mars and Scorpio, if it's pushed, and the Neptune square, I think, in my estimation, is a push. Why? Because we have Neptune and Leo. And this is a proud people. True Node and Leo. These are proud people. You know, when we go back to Austria, we go back to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, right? I mean, this is where the Habsburgs were. This is where the seat of power was in Europe prior to World War I. It's in Austria, right? So these are proud people. And with Neptune here coming in and squaring off against Mars in the chart in general and having the Mars return, you've basically fucking pissed these people off. You've woken them up and pissed them off. And now we're seeing what's happening. It will be interesting to find out and watch what takes place from this point forward. Also, the South Node, Saturn is hitting the South Node there in Austria. So these really hardcore top-down rules, orders, regulations are not going to work there. I mean, you can just see it, right? Like the more it gets Saturnian there, in this place where, they're trying to move away from that. They're really trying to move towards this idea of being theoretically sovereign, right? I mean, even though they got wiped out in World War I and some other wars, prior to that, the Napoleonic Wars, a lot of stuff happened in Austria. Saturn's not going to play well down here in this South Node. It's going to wake up this true node in Leo, and these people will find their nerve. They will find their courage, and they will find their nerve, and this Mars on their ascendant is going to be activated. And I don't understand sometimes how the AI works. So they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Austria is going first. Why is it going first? Well, because it starts with an A. Well, what about Albania? Albania starts with an A, and L comes for you. Shut up. Austria is going to go first. Okay. Austria is going to go first, and we're going to hit them hard, and we're going to make sure that those sanctions and those mandates are going to be ironclad. And once we get them, we'll push them over. We can get them. They're supposed to be very proud people, strong people. Theoretically, they may have even been Nazis. People may not give a shit. They won't give a shit if we do this against Austria. They'll be behind us. Schwarzenegger was a Nazi. They don't really like him. Let's go. Let's do it. We'll start there, and then we'll work our way down. Austria, Netherlands. We'll get to Germany. By the time we nail Austria and the Netherlands, Germany will be a slam dunk. But this is not what's happening. This is not what's happening. And even with Saturn transiting here, trining the moon and trining Venus, they're going to have more of a sense of justice and more of a sense of creating a world that they want versus what the powers that be want. Very interesting chart, and probably the wrong country to start in Europe. Probably the wrong country. Who knows? Maybe they're using sidereal astrology and they think, oh, well, there'll be a pushover. Yeah. Early Mars in Scorpio. But yeah, they're going to have the moon in Virgo. They're just too Virgo. They're just way too Virgo. No, you picked the wrong country. Picked the wrong country. So that's interesting. Keep your eye on Austria, because if they can't get Austria to play by their rules, and they can't get Austria to have their police and their army back the government, then guess what's going to happen? They're going to fit. Well, we got to get other people in there to enforce the law. That brings us back to the conversation that Prince Charles had about 2 weeks ago, and talking about him and raising an army for him. And he will have the resources of all the countries on the planet combined at his disposal. That's where they will actually try to take this thing. Okay. Whatever that army is, it won't be the Austrian army, because they're going to stand down. That's my sense. They're already starting to stand down, and they can't afford to have this. They can't afford to have it, because they are in the midst of a major paradigm shift. So whether it's the carjack or whether it's the climate jack, they want people to basically get on their knees and beg for the things that they think that they will be able to dole out to them in minuscule amounts. It's on. It's on. We're here now. We're here. All right. So I wanted to take a look at the EU, because the EU is a big part of this. And I've looked at the EU's chart before, so I think it's worth going back and revisiting the EU chart, because There are a couple of charts for the EU. One is a 1992 chart, and then the other is a 1997 chart. So I want to look at both of these charts. And the 1992 chart is the chart that is connected to when they voted to ratify the EU. And then the 97 chart is when they decide on the monetization of the euro. And they both take place in Maastricht, which is in the Netherlands. So this is where the EU has its roots, its genesis is in Maastricht. So we'll take a look at the 1992 chart. This is when they say, okay, we're going to have an EU. And then the 92 chart says, okay, this is the monetary unit they're agreeing upon. And I think the 98 chart, if I'm not mistaken, or 99 chart is when the euro first goes into circulation. It doesn't go into circulation all over Europe, by the way. Because I was in Germany in 2000 and 2001, and they had not gone from the mark to the euro yet. There were the ATMs that were being set up for the euro. They hadn't been turned on yet. So let's take a look at the 1992 chart. Okay, and this is when they say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to sign this document, and we're going to become the EU, the European Union. Okay, so there we go. This is the chart, 12:01 p.m. I think that's usually the time that these people get their signatures on. And we can see that the EU is an Aquarian. Of course it is. It's an Aquarian country, or it's not a country. It's an Aquarian affiliation or an association of formerly sovereign states that are rolled into a trade union. This is what it is. It is a trade union. And based on this chart, we see the EU getting ready to go through its Saturn return. Yes, the EU turns 30. It turns 30. It will turn 30 in February of 2022. Right. So this is when theoretically the EU really takes on a greater significance, because that's the way that the Saturn return chart works in an individual, right? You're in a formative stage up until about 29, 30. And then finally, especially for dudes around 29, 30, you kind of get your shit together. And it's like, okay, I'm going to get serious now. We're getting serious about this thing called life. Not everybody does, but usually that's what happens. So this is where the EU is going. It's starting full circle, right? So we're seeing this first phase of the EU, the first 30 years now are coming to fruition. And we've seen the EU get stronger and stronger as it's moved through the signs of Capricorn, with the exception of Brexit. The EU has managed to weather the storm of nationalism, which really took place between 2016 and 2018. And you had a number of candidates across Europe who were nationalistic, and they got defeated. Referendums got defeated. The only one that wasn't defeated was the UK. The UK doesn't want to be a part of the EU anyway. They don't want to be a part of the EU. They'll have certain trade agreements with the EU, but the UK wants to be the UK without any association to the EU. So Brexit was going to be a win-win for them anyway. And then you had Theresa May go in and foul it up so that they could still theoretically have a Pyrrhic victory around Brexit, but still be jacked into the European Union, which they still are. So we're excluding England, although England has weathered its nationalist storm as well. they've weathered it. And Boris Johnson, who was somehow made out to be a nationalist, I could never figure out why that is, only because he had bizarre hair like Trump, and they were both Geminis, and they were both from New York. I don't think he was never really a nationalist commodity. Farage, Nigel Farage, about as close as it gets. Farage is a Freemason, so who knows what his role really is. But this is when the EU now is supposed to come into maturity, right? With the Saturn return. So we see the EU as being the epitome of this Aquarian kind of entity, for the greater good. For the greater good. This is an entity that's been set up, and on this day, and by the way, they know their astrology. They know exactly what they're doing. They knew that by signing off on this document, they would have the power and the force and the historical canon of Capricorn behind them, right? So we have Mars, we have Neptune, we have Venus, we have Uranus, we have Ceres, we have the True Note, and all of them are in the 8th house. So we're dealing with banking and other people's money. We're talking about a massive war chest here, bringing everything together under one rubric, right? And it's all this Capricorn that's behind the sun. So it looks very benevolent. Aquarius looks benevolent. Like, isn't this great? We're going to be one family, one continent, one people. And yet behind it all, it's the same people that created those countries in the first place, the same people that created those houses in the first place, the same people who created those bloodlines. They're all back here, and they're all hidden. They're all hidden behind the sun in Aquarius, shining like a radiant beacon into the dawn of the new age. And Mercury, the light of reason, right behind the sun. Right. It's okay. We have the light of reason. We have science. We have brotherhood and fraternity. We're going to be one union brought together by one great cause. And that cause will be the climate. It will be the earth. It will be all the things that they're trumpeting now. And Saturn is there to add gravitas. Saturn is there to be the hard and difficult parent. Sorry, we have to make hard choices for you now. You're not going to be able to drive. You're not going to be able to eat meat. You're not even going to be able to have sex and procreate. No, that's going to be taking place in a very different kind of way. That's Saturn right there in the midheaven. But it's okay. Just do it for the greater good. Because if you don't, you have all this Capricorn just waiting to spring forth into the foreground and assert its dominance and will. This is the EU in a nutshell here. It is a wolf in, I don't know, a sheep. I wouldn't really call it a sheep. I wouldn't say it's a sheep, but let's say it's a wolf in deer's clothing or something like that, right? Because Aquarius is a little more elevated than just a fucking sheep, something that's got a little more, social order to it. But still, nonetheless, there are teeth in the EU. There are teeth here. And we have Jupiter and Virgo. And what is Jupiter and Virgo about? It's all about health. And it's all about the environment. And guess what? Look, it's retrograde. And Jupiter's not in the best place in Virgo. It's in its detriment. So we have Jupiter and Virgo is all about the picky little details. And Jupiter brings them up and makes them bigger. Well, let's make those picky little details bigger. And retrograde is like, hey, we're not going to move forward. We're going to move backwards. We're going to move backwards, but we're not even going to move backwards in a really interesting kind of way. Like backwards in an interesting kind of way would be getting rid of technology to a large extent and returning to becoming hunter-gatherers. Now that would be interesting. That would be, you really want to change the world, get rid of a lot of the fucking technology and let people become hunter-gatherers again. That would be interesting. It'd be a lot more real and a lot more honest instead of limiting all these choices and basically turning people into sheep in a pen, which is really what they're doing, right? And that's the Jupiter retrograde in Virgo. We're going to expand on the details. We're going to expand on these things that are connected to health. It's almost going to be anal in some ways. And then retrograde, it's moving backwards. We're moving backwards in time, not forwards. And all these Capricorn entities are just right there tapping into this this kind of anal retentive, virtue signal, Jupiter and Virgo retrograde kind of energy. That's what's happening here. And then we have the moon in Pisces. And look at that degree. It's right at 28. It's like second to last degree in Pisces. So it's right at the end, sacrificial. It's a sacrificial moon. It's like, it's okay. Just sacrifice for the greater good. We got a moon trine Pluto. So they're counting on people like getting into this, right? It's like, we're going to use this lunar energy, this earth energy, this goddess energy, and we're going to tap right into it. And that's going to be the carrier wave for what's going on here. And also healing, right? We got this moon trying to Chiron. Chiron and Leo is interesting because that's the individual. So this is all in opposition. Like if this is kind of I guess it's a bucket chart, and a real bucket chart would be Jupiter as the what do you call it? The focal point of the bucket chart. But I would say it's Chiron, and this has to do with the individual. This has to do with this idea of Leo and the spirit of Leo, and feeling romantic and poetic and heroic. And it's like, oh no, sorry, you got to answer to this council of Aquarian energy, because this is the new Europe. This is the old Europe. This is kings and queens and knights and damsels in distress and the round table and the fisher king and these tales of courage and love and all the stuff that has been part of the European canon in history. Not anymore. This is the new Europe, and the new Europe is communitarian. That's what it is. The EU is a communitarian body that will determine the greater good for everybody that's a part of the European Union. Now, is it going to work? Are they going to pull it off? It's going to be an interesting exercise here over the next year when Saturn comes in and begins to conjunct Mercury and the Sun. They could get very serious. Like the EU could all of a sudden become a force, have a standing army. I mean, all that shit, right? I mean, it could be very, very serious. And these are the people ultimately that I think would want to be the center of ruling the world. And they want to take the West down. Don't get me wrong. But that doesn't mean they want to take Europe down. And they don't want to take Europe down as a governing body. I mean, who's running this whole thing right now? We're looking at Klaus Schwab. We're looking at the Vatican. We're looking at the royals in England, right? The House of Windsor. These players are still intact, and they're very European. They don't come to visit Bill Gates. They don't come to visit Tony Fauci. Those guys go there. So it's not as if anything has really changed. And in fact, they want to reclaim this in a different, because they're always rebranding. They're always rebranding. Before World War I, we had all these different houses, like the Habsburgs. You had the Windsors. You had all the Hanovers, all these different houses in Europe. And then World War I came along, and they knew that they would have to move into nation states. So they basically collapsed the houses, even though the houses were still behind the power of the nation states, because they knew that this democracy thing was going to be something that they would have to deal with, and that people were not going to cater to this idea of kings and queens and dukes and duchesses, not with the United States. Not with the role of the United States. So they would have to change something. So these various countries would have to go through these revolutions or these wars. And then very quickly, they redrew the map from going from these principalities and these kingdoms to nation states, and the nation states again being redrawn very quickly, and many of them being absorbed into the new Soviet Union. This is what happens with Europe. They just redraw the map all the time, and they're doing it again. Now it's the European Union. Those countries don't even really exist. They talk about Austria. They talk about the Netherlands, but they're really all answering, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to, I think it's in Austria. I think that's where the EU is actually located. So are they going to be successful? Well, we're going to see. We're going to see what happens over the course of the next year with Saturn coming in here and conjuncting all those planets, because they will definitely try to flex their muscle and flex their power and flex their influence in the world. And they want to essentially drain the power, drain the resources, and drain the influence out of the United States. So they think they can do it. They think they can do it. And who knows? They may be right. They may be right. Then again, they may be wrong. One of the things that this chart does not have a lot of is fire. There's not a lot of fire in this chart. So this is a chart that's based on ideology and concept, which is very Aquarian. It's a chart that's based on the accrual of old power through Capricorn, which is the power behind the new throne, right, of the new ruler or the new king. But there's not a lot of passion here. It's not about ideas, it's not about ideas. It's not about philosophy. It's not about something that grabs people's hearts and makes it beat and want to die for their country or die for their God. That's not in this chart. So if there's anything missing here, it's fire, because it's also cerebral and based on these Capricornian kinds of goals and machinations. So if there's one thing that this chart, the one Achilles heel, it's Chiron, it's Leo, it's fire, it's energy, it's youth, it's passion, and it's love. This is a pretty loveless chart, actually. Moon in Pisces isn't too bad, but at that degree, it's so universal, right? It's like, we're moving away, we're cycling out. This is the moon of an old soul here, and it's so temperate and even sacrificial. It's a sacrificial moon at 28 degrees. So there's no fire, there's no passion. It's all kind of science and ideology and kind of group consciousness. Real fire, real passion, real determination will take down the European Union. I guarantee you. They have no defense against it. They have no real firewall against it. So when Saturn goes into Aries, that's going to be a very interesting time, because Saturn will begin to square off against all these aspects of the EU. And I think they're going to really struggle with control in a pretty significant kind of way. They're going to struggle with control and trying to hold this thing together. So usually when that happens, guess what? They kind of raise the stakes and they double down. And I think with Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries, we can see fascism like it's like we've never seen it before. Like it could be really bad, really, really bad with that Neptune-Saturn conjunction in Aries coming up. The good news is that as quickly as it could become nearly intolerable, it could also dissolve just as quickly, right? So it's a high water moment. The heat that conjunction generates in 2025. It's the high point. It is the high point, and after that, it begins to taper off. But for about 2 years, it's going to be very intense, very, very intense. The dissolving of structures and nations and states, and this Aries energy coming in, very forceful, and trying to unify everything under kind of one rule, one order, one stated goal, and a hard one at that. The whole thing with Trump was interesting because Trump really was this nationalistic Pied Piper. And I always thought that if they really wanted to get people to bend to the will of, say, an entity like the Antichrist, okay, that the Antichrist would come on and be a nationalist, or an Antichrist would come on and would represent the people in a way that the people would have no problem throwing down with this very populist figure. That it would be easy, right? They would just sneak right in and then overthrow this kind of fake existing order. But really, that was the plan, was that they would overthrow this fake existing order, and then this very charismatic, strident, popular individual would be exactly what they wanted. So I could see that happening with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. But I don't think the EU is built to last. That's my sense. That is my sense, because any real blood, any real passion will overcome this kind of dry, static, science-based, equity-based, greater good model with all the money and the tradition of the old world and old rulership behind it. I don't think it's going to last. That's my 2 cents. Okay. Where are we? 10 o'clock. When did we start? Around 7:40, so 9:40. So we're about 2 hours into this. I keep wanting to go back to this this global dimming in these 400-year cycles. I'm going to wait till next week. I keep putting it off. And I'll tell you why, because I'm going to put some charts together so you guys can really see what I'm talking about, just in terms of this cycle that we're in that goes back to the 1600s. I think around 1642, if I'm not mistaken. So let's put that off till next Sunday. Tomorrow is the assassination, of course. We're going back to 1122, the death of Kennedy, the Fisher King. I'll cover that tomorrow on 15 Minutes of Flame. We'll go down the Kennedy path once again, something that we've done numerous times and something that symbolically I know a fair bit about, and it's a really important event and ritual. So we'll revisit that tomorrow over in 15 Minutes Flame. I think I will stream live simultaneously tomorrow because I want to do that on Mondays. So you'll be able to pick that up over on YouTube as well. But if you're somebody who wants to hang out in the 15 Minutes of Flame side of things, please go there. I'm going to disable chat tomorrow on the YouTube stream. So if you want to do chat, you can come over to the 15 Minutes of Flame side and chat with us. Okay. All right. So I think we're good for tonight. Thanks for being here. And next Sunday, we'll get together at 7 p.m. That'll be the new time. And let's just see where everybody is right now. Here we go. Okay, what do we have here? Hey, it's Laura Garum. What's going on? Been doing the frequency from the YouTube channels. Just got through a flu, only with frequencies in less than a week. I was back on track. Good for you. Taking care of yourself. I feel like I'm raging and I don't like it. Yeah, man. It's like there's a lot going on, dude. I totally get it. You're welcome, Kurt. Good to see you. Let's see. There's a photo of the driver of Waukesha parade. Looks like they were trying to amp those things up. So what did somebody drove a car through a parade, huh? Is that what happened? Is that what happened? I think I saw the car parked somewhere in a driveway and it had a fender dented. Is that what happened? I think so. Okay. Hewlett Clark's frequencies. You know, I used to have one of those devices. Pretty good device. All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. Check out The Planets by Holst. It's a really great piece of music. We listened to Jupiter tonight. There's Jupiter, there's Saturn, there's Uranus. Holst was really into astrology. Not only that, but he was also really into Gnosticism, and he did an entire work on the life of Jesus through the Gnostic lens. Holst is a very interesting character, and he was also really interested in Indian transcendental cosmology as well. Fascinating character, Gustav Holst. So if you want to hear something really uplifting and symphonic, check out The Planets. It's very cool. And guess what? It's all over YouTube for free. Okay. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'll see you guys tomorrow over in 15 Minutes of Flame.